about the floating needle definition. That definition has been, and I must say, viciously altered in recent years by some people who either don't understand the text or have purposes other than helping people. In 1978, L. Ron Hubbard wrote a bulletin, and he tried to clarify once and for all what a floating needle was, and even says no other definition is valid. You would think he would have made the last statement. But no, in 1979, when they compiled a book of emitter drills, they added a definition taken completely out of context that referred to a specific video critique of an auditor who had miscalled a reed. And they take what Hubbard say in that context as a sweeping generality applying to every floating needle. And therefore, the understanding of a floating needle now is they've confused a persistent floating needle with a regular floating needle. And therefore, their auditors now are being covertly given the verbal data that the end phenomenon of a process is a persistent floating needle, and they must ignore floating needles because they're not good looking enough according to the standard of someone, and therefore PCs must be overrun and overrun. And this result in people spending countless more hours and having worse results. About the subject of interjecting endless sec checking in the middle of a level, in particular level if someone is winning and is making good progress and gains, the reference being violated is not CS73, which has been revised 4 times since L. Ron Hubbard passed away, but CS series 1 to 10, which talk very clearly that you complete cycles of actions before you start a new one, and that you don't interject new programs into a major grade. Also, CS Series 43 clearly say that you don't make trouble for the PC. Now, why people are afraid to question management or question some of the practice of the church? Well, the church makes it amply clear that if you challenge their ideas, you're going to get into trouble, and it's going to be very punitive for your wallet, because you will have to disburse many, many intensives of sec checking. And they inform or they tell people that the people who do not agree with the program will be disbarred from gaining spiritual freedom after being pointed out that they claim to be the only way out, and in fact the only purveyors of standard tech, which they are not by a very long shot. In 1982, there was a series of major shakeups in the church. A new management that was essentially self-elected took over, got rid of the old guard, and got rid of most established elements that were successful in the church. One of them was the mission network. Every big mission, and most of the medium ones, were either destroyed or depleted of their resources and bled of all their money. This resulted in a tremendous loss of long-term income for the church and continuous downstats ever since. A lot of people left the church around that time. In some places, the church tried to minimize it, when in fact about 50% of the church membership departed around that time. Now, about who David Miscavige actually is. Well, David Miscavige was born in a Scientology family and was part of the Sea Org at an early age, like from age 12. And then he was in a messenger organization and held various posts doing various projects and all that. And then when he took over the leadership of the church, he had actually never been a leader, never been a commanding officer or senior executive or executive director in any organization before. And this might explain his tendency to treat people like if they were machines. And this is what I've personally observed, is that attitude that he has. Also, his lack of credentials. He has only done the Class 4 course without internship, never completed the OEC. So one can challenge his supremacy over technical matters where he sees fit to override Class 12 auditors continually when he's only a provisional Class 4 who doesn't even have a proven track of auditing someone successfully. Over the years, I've been contacted by many people. I've received over 300 emails from various people, and I've interviewed and talked to many people over the phone, and many of them had a strikingly similar story. They got audited intensive after intensive without results, even at FLAG, in fact, especially at FLAG. And it seemed that the interest was to get them to consume hours, and going up the bridge and actually achieving the promised result seemed to be the less of the concern. I've audited recently a couple of celebrities. One of them is quite known for some derogatory video that he spread, that has been spread on the internet about his experience in the church. And indeed, it became very clear talking to those people that the motive of the church was no longer to help those people, but to serve its own purposes, which are not those that are described in the works of XII Scientology. Okay, there are many alternates. First of all, if someone wants to do services outside the church, there are many alternates, and contrary to what the church teach, there's a lot of good people. In fact, there are more auditors that were trained in the church that have left the church than there are that remain in it. Far more. The other thing is that someone can get coerced only if he agrees with the source of coercion. People are actually free to demand to have the technology properly applied to them, and to demand to get what they are promised. And no group has the right to claim that they are perfect simply because theoretically they have a higher purpose. The end never justified the means. Finally, Hubbard himself said that excessive regulation can only stem from those who have a vested financial interest and have a lot more interest in financial gain than freeing man. On the 1st of November 1962, L. Ron Hubbard gave a very interesting lecture called The Road to Truth. In it, he points out that the road to truth has to be traveled all the way. It also means that one has to open his eyes, open his perceptions, and look and evaluate data so as one can see the truth and the false and separate both of them and continue toward the road to truth instead of blindly following the advice of some authority.